Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to an all-new weekly art challenge review video. I'm your host, BJ Dell. If you are new to the channel, basically, I do one of these videos every single week. At the end of the video, I give you guys a drawing prompt for that week. You draw a design based on that prompt, and then you post it online. If you want to take part in these challenges going forward, stay tuned to the end of the video. I will tell you exactly how you can submit your designs. Then the following week, I pick out a handful of designs and do a review video like the one you're watching now. So last week's word was gargoyle, so let's see what you guys came up with. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into today's video for Gargoyle and see what you guys came up with. The first one is John C. And John said this one is basically digital sculpting with Blender meets Procreate. So initially did the sculpting of the Gargoyle in Blender. If you guys aren't familiar with Blender, I personally have never used it, but if you've heard of ZBrush, it's semi-similar to that. I'm gonna have to look into Blender a little bit more. I've used ZBrush before, and it's really cool to be able to sculpt digitally like this, and I think this is kind of cool combining the two different programs into one. So, you know, doing this area in the Blender program and then drop it into Procreate to finish it up is really cool. I love just, you know, kind of the photorealistic look of this. Super neat, and it's really cool to see. Like I said in previous videos, you know, if you guys want to submit artwork for these challenges, it doesn't have to be digital. It can be traditional, and even with digital, it doesn't have to be something, you know, as a drawing. It can be something like this that you sculpted digitally. So that's super cool. We've had people show off sculptures before. We've talked about that in previous videos, that they've actually, you know, done physical sculptures out of Super Sculpey, and this is kind of cool seeing a digital version. So love the guy. It's a very kind of classic gargoyle shape with the, you know, the knees tucked in underneath the hands here, and just kind of that scrunched down look. I think it's just a fantastic job. Like I said, it looks so super realistic. So really, really cool to see that one this week, John. So thanks for sharing that. Next up is Justin B. And Justin said, I made this with my finger in the Sketches app on the iPad. So this is really cool. Kind of shows you what's possible, even if you don't have an Apple Pencil or decide just not to use one. I know in a previous video I showed kind of using my finger to do some designs with the iPad and then also with the iPhone itself in Procreate, but this is kind of cool just being done in the Sketches app, and I really love this. I mean, you can see even without the pressure sensitivity of the Apple Pencil, getting some really nice line weights throughout here, so the line weights really change up throughout the design, and I think that's super cool. Adds a lot more, you know, kind of interesting lines to the overall design, and makes it stand out a little bit more. Textures in here are really neat too, with this background here, kind of got this textured circle back here, plus this kind of like ongoing, you got to look a little close to see it, but there's this ongoing just kind of like textured lines running across here. It just gives a really cool overall look to the whole design. And of course, you know, the gargoyle here kind of playing with his iPhone there. Love the glasses too, and the tongue is just fantastic. So really cool and impressive job for using your finger, and then also just a really good kind of character design and an overall look to the whole piece. So fantastic job, Justin. Thanks for sharing that. Next up is Melvin H, and Melvin's got this fantastic female gargoyle, and this one just really stood out just because of kind of the textures used. You've got like right here with this lighting and the highlight here and the way that's done with the textures. It really kind of has that chiseled and hand-carved look that, you know, it's made out of, you know, granite or stone or what have you, but the way that that's done is super, super cool. And the same thing here with some of the textures here and over here. Same thing, it just has that kind of chiseled look to it, which really works well for the subject matter. Love the overall design too, and just the composition of this, the way she's sitting on the ball here with the moon kind of framing behind here. And then the highlights and shadows are just really great as well. So really bright highlights over here, and then a secondary highlight over here with the purple just really makes the thing pop. I like that. It kind of breaks it up. With going, you know, with a granite and gray look, getting too dark with the shadows really is going to run it into those edge lines. So adding in that pop highlight right there with that purple, I think that was a really wise choice and looks really, really cool. So just a fantastic job this week, Melvin. So thanks so much for sharing that one. Next up is Spud, and Spud's got this awesome gargoyle sitting on top, perching overlooking the city. I think this one's really cool. Got some great big eyes here, gives a lot of character to the design. I think that's really neat. And then, of course, the city backdrop with the moon in the sky. One thing I wanted to talk about with this one is there's times when you can almost add too many textures and you have too many things going on in a design. And I think that's kind of the case with this. You've got a lot of like cross hatching going on here for some of the shadows and even using the cross hatching here for the highlights. But then we've got more cross hatching here and then this kind of like the luminescent glow back here. If you use Procreate, I'm assuming it was probably one of the luminance brushes, so maybe the glimmer one there. I think there's just kind of too much going on. It's too busy, and once you zoom out, everything kind of starts getting lost in, you know, from one part to the next. Same thing here with the gargoyle as far as sitting here. Really suggests, you know, maybe darkening this up or doing something down here because it all kind of blends in. I'm not really sure. Like here is this, whoops, now I'm on that luminance. With this part here, you know, I'm not sure what's going on here. We kind of just lose if it's the foot going here or if it's the part that he's sitting on coming up, it's just kind of this blob of green. And we've got, you know, all these different textures here and there's really nothing right there. So everything gets kind of muddied there. And I think if you just would have used a little bit more contrast in there to kind of break up the gargoyle from what he's sitting on, I think that would have worked. Even here with the buildings, I think the lights in here work pretty well, but you could have almost made the sky here lighter, made the dark or the buildings a little bit darker, made those almost like a silhouette. And I think that would have worked a little bit better to make it not as busy and make it pop just a little bit more. But overall, really cool design. I like the kind of city feel to it and everything like that. So really good job, Spud. Thanks for sharing that one this week. Next up is Jonathan. Jonathan's got this awesome looking gargoyle here. Super kind of basic piece as far as composition goes. You got your kind of center idea, the overall main character or the main composition piece of the illustration, and then we've got just the, you know, the moon back here, just a perfect circle, no highlights or shadows or any you know, fades to that with the opacity giving it a glow. So just really basic. I like the black. I think it works. Everything frames really nice, and I like the overall composition of the character. The character design works. I love the eyes here, like the heavy shadow here, which really kind of builds up that sense of depth that brow is leaving. And then the way that the eyes twirl, I really like it, almost like a kind of mesmerizing look to it. It's got definitely the very Tim Burton feel to it, and I think that's really cool. Another thing done really well here is the textures used throughout the character, really building up the idea of this is made of stone and granite, and you know, it's got the speckled look that really makes it have that concrete feel to it, and I think that is done super well. So just an overall fantastic job, and I just love the look of the piece. So good job, Jonathan. Next up is Kate, and Kate said, let me pull up her post real quick. Kate said that mostly used BJ's texture brushes, which I do have a new texture brush set available on Gumroad, which that is linked in the description below if you guys use Procreate and want to try those out. Said she used the asphalt and specks to give the building a cement look. Everything else was done by the texture grain inking brush, even the background, and then used the paper brush for the sky, shadows, and a foggy hue over the city. So once again, another cityscape, and I think this one works really well. I kind of love how everything kind of blends in and kind of, you know, loses its clarity towards the back here. You start going lighter and lighter, and that works really well. Kind of builds up that fog sense in the distance, and I think that's cool. I love the use of the paper texture up here too. It really gives it kind of that traditional cutout feel look to it, and great job on the cement too. Just everything here really looks great. Love the use of shadows and then the highlights here, so we've got different values, and it really keeps this from being too plain and going straight across. Really breaks up this ledge here with this highlight here and then adding the extra highlight down here. Just really keeps that as two separate pieces and stops them from blending in together and getting too kind of mushy. So just a really good job. Love the expression too. The little wink is just fantastic and a really cute piece. So thanks so much for sharing that one this week, Kate. Next one up is Beth, and Beth had said, I know that she'd been out of the drawing loop for a while, so welcome back to the fold. Glad you decided to pick up your passion again and get going with it. She said that recently bought a Hawaiian Canvas 20 and installed Krita. and this is the first finished illustration that she's produced with it. So a really cool job. I love the look of this. Really, once again, kind of tells a story in one frame. You really want to kind of know more too, what's going on, you know, with this lady here holding up the smaller child here and the gargoyle on the side. This really, the first thing I thought of when I saw this, because of the actual, you know, characters and the composition, but also the color palette that was used, really reminds me of Studio Ghibli stuff. Just kind of has that neutral and just really kind of pale and pastel color palette that a lot of the Ghibli films have. And of course with the monster, gargoyle in this case, and you know, the child, that ties into a lot of the Ghibli films as well. And I think it's cool. This one could definitely be something that I want to see more of and know the backstory of what's going on here. Is this the first time meeting? Is this, you know, an old friendship that they're reforming? Maybe that the mom met the gargoyle when she was the daughter's age, and this is him coming back to check up on her. There's so many different routes this could go. So I really, really like the storytelling aspect, and a really fantastic job, Beth. So thanks so much for sharing that one this week. And last but not least is Jose. And this one I absolutely love. I've talked about before, I'm not a massive fan of the symmetry tool and making everything perfect from left to right. However, in cases like this, cases like gargoyles and sculptures and stuff, architectural wise, this is something that I would use symmetry for. You see a lot of, especially gargoyle statues, they are symmetrical from one side to the other, and I think this one's fantastic. I love just the overall, the shading, the highlights, the different colors that you use. We've got this really kind of cool blue here in the center, and some of these other areas off to the side. It's almost like a grayish pink around here. It's so subtle that you can't really tell, but those subtle changes from one to the next really makes this thing pop. It has a very strong three-dimensional feel to it, and I like too that it's a little blurry. So that's not just the camera. I like it because it's not super sharp. It has this just weird like feel to it. I can't really put my finger on it, but I like that it's not totally in focus and it kind of looks rough around the edges. And I think that really gives it a lot of character. And I love the overall design. Like I said, the way that you use the highlights and the shadows here. Once again, like we talked about with Kate's, you know, using the different colors here and the way that you use the shadows and the highlights to make this pop to where it's not all blended together. That's what I was talking about previously with Spuds here, you know, kind of breaking this up with different shadows, highlights, and color values to make them two separate pieces. I think that, like I say, Kate did a really good job with that here. That stands out here and here. And the same thing with Jose's here, just makes it really pop off that ledge. So just a fantastic job. So that's it for this week's submissions for Gargoyle. All right, guys, so that's it for this week's video. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you liked today's video too, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. And a special thanks goes out again to everyone that participated in this week's challenge. I love seeing your guys' stuff, so thanks so much again. So last week's word was gargoyle, and this week's prompt is going to be favorite band or musical artist. And it doesn't have to be the person either. So if you've got just a song lyric that speaks to you and you want to illustrate that, definitely go ahead. Be a good way for the group and us in general to learn about you as an artist and what inspires you and what your musical taste is. So if you want to take part in the challenges, here is how. I started a group over on Facebook called Keep Creating, a Learn, Draw, Share Art Community, which I will link it in the description below. Post your designs over there. If you don't have Facebook, you can tag me on Instagram or Twitter at bjdell, or send them to me through my website. There's a contact form on there, bjdell.com. So I want to see what you guys can come up with, want to learn about what music inspires you. So that's it for this week. Until next time, keep creating.